We are now streaming live on Facebook just 1 minute after 7, according to the sources here at the 3D Politics Bob Wills Network. And got to ask questions about that Bob Wills guy. 3D Politics, Tommy McCay, your fantastic host, once again here on Monday nights live. 3D Politics, I've got with me David Oldham, Constitutional Grounds as usual, and David Van on the road tonight from Soonerpolitics.org. Here we go again. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about. Masks, Supreme Court decisions, all sorts of stuff, and Tommy's tantric tweets are all coming up tonight. So, Van, tell us first, everybody's dying to know, where the hell are you, and what are you driving through, and where's the protesters?
I'm in COVID chase car number 2, coming to you from the heartland en route back to the great state of Oklahoma. Mix a little bit of family time, get to see all the relatives, as well as do a little bit of research while I was up there on some of the Supreme Court rulings coming up and some of the health decisions. So I'll have more to say about a couple of the items referring to my trip in Minnesota, but I want to say I've never seen such passionate Trump fans as you see in rural Minnesota. It's amazing. I mean, they got Trump stores around the state.
Nice.
They got souvenir shops, have a whole section on the Trump 2020 campaign in a souvenir shop. I mean, it's just, Trump won 80 of the 88 Minnesota counties last time and barely lost the race.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I think Trump is going to take another liberal Democrat, leftist Democrat state, and I think he's going to add it to his long list of Great Lakes states that are now Trump country.
Well, you better hurry back, because by the time you make it back to the great state of Oklahoma, half of it might be an Indian reservation. But what they used to call it.
Yeah.
That's what they used to call it.
That's
so we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Oldham, what's going on in your life before we get started?
Oh, just busy. Just can't.
Are you back? Are you traveling now also, or are you back local again?
No, I'm local, but I'm having some technical problems tonight because the rain and storms took out my internet the other day. And
so everybody got hit. Mm-hmm.
Working around some of this stuff, so we'll go as much as we possibly can.
Zoom meetings are a lot like the Walinda family performances. Somebody always falls off and dies at the end.
For those who remember the Walinda,
I got 3 Gilligan jokes.
You are dating yourself.
Well, I dated myself before I was married. When it comes to sex, I really got to hand it to myself. There it is. Let's not get him started. Masks. Who's in favor of masks? I have said that I don't wear a mask because I was born this way, without a mask.
There you go.
So, I just don't, everybody seems to think they can force me to wear a mask, and when you really push comes to shove, they say, oh yeah, well, if Target says you can't come in without a mask, you can't go in with a mask. I'm like, okay. It used to be that black people wouldn't get served at the soda counter, but if Target wants to keep me from going in if I don't wear a mask, okay. But if I'm walking around and without a mask, that is your tough crap. Anyway, masks, and we're all talking about it. And then also, so do you want to start with masks?
Sure.
We might as well.
Let's dive right in. I already got my joke out there, so I'm satisfied.
Yeah. Well, you talk about.
And I'm working on.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please.
I was at a wedding Saturday for my nephew, and I've got 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, both of who are far leftist. They're both flight attendants, and both have had full-blown Wuhan virus. I mean, full-blown.
Right.
And they're both giving plasma now. Their antibody count still real high. Everything, but because they're leftist, guess who were the only 2 people in my very large Catholic family to wear the mask all day during the wedding, during the reception, everything? And they were the only two who couldn't have spread it. But yet, you know, it was more a political statement than a health statement.
And how embarrassing to have those little wine stains right there. I'm sorry, David. Yeah, and what else?
I'm telling you, you know, you're not too far off when you start looking at people being denied service because they won't wear a mask.
Yeah.
And the mask is becoming more of a political statement of ideology,
right,
in where your, you know, personal politics are.
That's correct.
More so than a health issue.
Oh, well, here you go. Oldham's got something for us.
I came to realize, or came to be made aware, that GT's name is that first name is actually George. So we've got him as Boy George, and that old famous song, "I Really Want to Mask You."
You're dating Oldham. You're dating yourself.
I am.
I don't know the song. Is it a remake?
And there is a Karma Manascu as well. We've got one for that. But the yeah, I mean, it has become a means, a political means, and it's like, why are we going through this when the Constitution is clear that if they don't have an enumerated power, then they don't get to do it.
You want me to answer that message for you?
What message?
Looks like you've got a message.
Oh no, that's a Facebook telling me that I've got new news feed stuff.
I'm glad everybody can see it.
Anyway, but the point is that, and this comes to what is coming down in Tulsa, coming down on Wednesday, and that is that Tulsa City Council is proposing, GT Bynum, Boy George has proposed to try to impose a mask mandate. We've talked in the past about turning our police officers into the goons and the goon squad to enforce these things when there's no constitutional power to do so. And
so where do they meet?
This will be at the City Hall before the meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon, up until the meeting I think it starts at 6:30, is going to be a protest by the Citizens Against Mask Mandates. And this is a Tulsa group, and so they are pushing. They've got almost 3,000 members, and there's going to be a bunch of people at the meeting, so or at the protest, and then some of them speaking. I know Ron Durbin is ticked off enough about it that he has said he plans to be there and actually speak at the city council and so forth. And he's taking time out of his pet project of medical marijuana to come and fight this. Now, I've been talking to lawyers all week long, and they're pretty much of the opinion that we need to have some sort of harm done to somebody caused by the master mandates, and then we can proceed. So there has to be harm to have standing. Even though I think there's already harm, their big concern is they don't think they can convince a jury of the harm.
Well, what about the freedom of travel between states, where they are stopping people at borders to do a COVID? There is a loss right there of freedom of movement. I mean, you don't have to suffer a physical injury. I mean, they can impede your freedom of movement, and that is a loss.
Well, I've just passed 2 state borders in the last 6 hours. I'm on the road now. Haven't seen anything in the heartland. I have heard reports of it up in the New England states.
That's what I've heard as well.
Right. Yeah. New York especially. New York and Connecticut and New Jersey tend to follow New York very closely.
If you guys remember, it was New York that threatened retribution for any state who denied New Yorkers free travel around the country some 3-4 months ago. And now he just put Oklahoma on his ban list. So,
which Oklahoma? Yeah.
Yeah, nobody ever said that leftists weren't hypocrites, right? So it's nothing new. I want to
Well,
say
one of them
something.
did, but they took it back.
Ron Durbin, he's a good friend of mine, a good friend of Sooner Politics. He's really becoming a good civil liberties attorney and a leader in Oklahoma. He does a lot of pro bono work. Yes, he has worked more in medical marijuana, but that's an area where we've really had to fight against the health department in the past. So this is no new fight for Ron to fight against the health department.
But I mean, and the marijuana laws are where there's a lot of support for civil liberties. You know, it's kind of like that's where they coincide.
And listen,
go ahead.
I have a Facebook group for medical marijuana patients I helped start because I've been always trying to help the mentally ill, especially with PTSD and anxiety disorders. I've got over 12,000 members in that group alone. So having someone like Durbin, you know, we're tapping into a huge base of people who get it. It's about freedom, folks. It's what it's about.
Hey, if you're getting ready to join us in the next 15 minutes, this is Tommy McCay right here every Monday with David Vann and David Oldham on 3D Politics Live. We yell and scream and see if we can get our point made across Zoom, the amazing new medium where we all take turns saying what we want. And sure.
I want to give a shout out to Jake Mossman. Met him this weekend. He is one of the fine conservative voices on the campus of St. Cloud State University, public state-funded university. And his girlfriend Jessica, I met them, and I tell you what, they are big fans of liberty, constitutional, limited government, and they're in a tough battle in a very liberal campus. I thought I'd give them a shout out.
Nice job.
Yep. Awesome.
Yep.
So you want to move on to the Gardena, California man killed. David, is that your story, Oldham?
Yes. Yeah. And that, I think it's on my personal Facebook page. I put it up.
Okay.
So there was, because of these mask mandates and because there's so much phobic hysteria that has been fomented by media, there became an argument over a man who entered a store in Gardena, California, without a mask. And he entered the store. The security guard tried to make him put on a mask, and one thing led to another. The man left.
Instead of getting married.
You know, I mean, the man left, and actually, I think they both waved guns around. The security guard's wife waved a gun around. They left, and as he was leaving, the security guard shot him in the back. And,
this is a vengeance killing.
Ended up killing him.
Oh my God.
And the man is arrested on murder charges in California. But I put it out there as a cautionary tale, because how many people do we see that have this screaming fit with those of us who are not wearing masks?
Wait a minute. If this was true, Oldham, it would be all over MSNBC and CNN, right?
Well, there's another problem with that. No, the races of the perpetrator and the victim were improper to put on TV. They're improper for national television.
Oh my goodness!
It was actually black on black crime, and so it doesn't follow any of the narratives. Okay. It doesn't follow the promote hysterics narrative. It doesn't follow the racial narrative that they want to push. So therefore we can't, you're not going to see it on national TV, but it was on the locals, and I can't remember who I got it from, but it was out there.
Are you going to get a link on 3D Politics Facebook page?
I can put it on 3D Politics. Look under David Oldham, and it's on my page as well.
You know, I did recently employ the technique of the progressive left as I was scrolling like I always do on my social media until something triggers me. You know, I'm so clever, I could make a comment on every single thing I see, but I don't have time, and neither do they. So I wait until I'm really significantly triggered. And then, so I saw one of them where she has what I call her Shea bots, her little mob of people who live in their little bubble. But she started posting crap about some percentages of whatever. And I said, okay. And I posted, let me try this progressive liberal technique, starting chanting now, not my narrative, not my narrative, not my narrative. And then that ought to do it, I said. So, you know, that's how you do it.
To paraphrase the great Samuel Clemens, everybody has a right to Tom's opinion.
Everybody wants Tom's opinion because everybody loves to be correct.
That's right.
So there it is. And actually, Oldham, I think you make a great point that regardless of whether it's fear-mongering for always wear a mask or fear-mongering of you better not wear a mask, either way, if you oversteer to the left or the right, people get hurt. That was a vengeance killing. The guy shot him in the back. I mean, wow, that's just cheap. Somebody said something that was really effective is what happened.
Maybe he got called the N-word. I don't know.
It could have been. Yeah. Oldham looks like he froze. He looks good as usual, but he looks like he froze up. Oldham, are you there? Oldham maxed out. Dang it. AI. Tom Steyer. I'm worried for the 2024 that there's going to be a Tom Steyer, Jamie Dupree ticket. Because, you know, Jamie Dupree isn't even real. He is literally just like we're going to live with Jamie Dupree updates for the rest of our lives. 2027, it'll be Jamie Dupree 5.0. Same guy. Same thing with Tom Steyer. That's artificial intelligence I'm scared of.
Let me bring everybody up to speed. It was about, 6 years ago, Jamie lost the ability to speak. It was some kind of a nerve thing.
Yeah, Jamie Dupree, that's right. I thought it was a communist plot, but then the Democrats have stole that whole routine from me.
Let me tell you, Jamie was the ultimate objective journalist. You could never tell where there might be a bias with him. He wrote straight down the middle, gave you the facts, and left everything else out. He was hired by Cox Communications, but then he was so good that Sean Hannity made him a regular daily part of his show. Yeah. So, but that's Jamie. Solid guy. In fact, he was also on, who's the guy that preceded Herman Cain?
Neil Bortz.
Yeah,
there we are.
There's Zoom. Yeah, Oldham's back. Nice job. Look, we suffer all sorts of trauma around here and push right through. That's what Oldham just proved the point right there. We call him names like Redskin and stuff, and he still just comes right back.
Yeah.
Did I miss that discussion?
Yeah, you missed a whole thing. Van was teaching us a lot of stuff, and I was like, wow, it's amazing.
We had a whole section on Constitution you missed.
We taught you stuff you'll never know. Oh, my gosh, yeah. Anyway, Oldham, I think I said something about, you made a great point, that the guy that got shot for not wearing the mask or wearing the mask, my point
Not
that I was
wearing
trying
the mask.
So I was trying to bring your story into focus, saying that if we oversteer on the left or the right, i.e. you got to wear a mask or you can't wear a mask, I mean, either way, these oversteers, xenophobic movements makes everybody freak out. People get hurt. This one sounds like to me where you broke off sounds like a vengeance killing that somebody said something really, really impactful and the guy like shot him in the back on the way out. He's like, you're not going to say that to me. You know, like your wife is ugly or something like that. And it's like, oh, yeah, right. You know, she might be, but I'll go to jail for her.
Right. Well, there wouldn't have been any of that angst in that argument if it hadn't have been for the mask. And my point is, I have never seen anybody on the side that wants freedom that has said you cannot wear a mask, you cannot wear protective equipment, you cannot do something. They have not said that. That is the stark difference here. And let's understand, every single person who wants to impose some sort of force on their neighbors to do what they desire is at heart in line with this guy who just pulled the trigger. The only difference is this guy's pulled the trigger.
Well, literally, it's a use of force. Van, what do you got?
Well, you know, you walk into a bank in Oklahoma, take Arvis Bank. That's where I've been banking for some time. They've always had a rule that they didn't want you wearing a ball cap either.
Yeah.
Their cameras to get a full description, you know, image of you. So now I guess you have to wear a mask, but no ball caps. So go figure.
And I think if I'm gonna wear a mask, I'd want to wear a ball cap because I don't want anybody knowing who I am.
So true.
Oh my gosh! I'm trying to get famous, and this mask is killing the whole routine.
Tell you what. If I ever have to wear a mask, maybe I'll just go ahead and make my own, and I'll put a great big giant MAGA across it. Mega.
Oh my God. You know, but Oldham, really, you hit on the key word is force. That is, I continue to talk about racism in a way nobody else I've heard define it, and that it is force group association. And it works both ways. They can say, oh, you're in our group, or oh, you're in that group. See, all it takes is one idiotic person to do something with a Trump hat on. They say, see, your whole organization is that. It's like they force the individual into the group. This is the problem with socialism all the way around, is you don't get to pick the group you're in. The group picks you and the group kicks you out. And this is the problem. And it's all force. Force by putting you in the group, force by kicking you out. And that's the problem, is our neighbors want to team up with government to use force against us, to make us do stuff and force participation, i.e., if you wanted to be gay, if you wanted to have a gay wedding and do all the gay cupcakes, you were free to do it. I don't have to go, and it's your business, right? I don't have to go to your gay pride thing. But now they're saying, you know what? We have a religion that says you got to wear a mask. And I'm like, I can't even get my holy water, bitch. I want my holy water before I get a mask on. So you can just bite it because you're not even an ordained priest. But you're acting like I'm going to join your religion. But I just can't, because there's this Jesus guy I already made a deal with.
Yep.
So it's all the use of force is a problem. That's the problem. They're really using force.
I mean, true respect does not force anyone else to comply.
That's
with
right.
That's respect.
What about the whole consent argument? Oh, you can't do anything unless we consent. You got to consent. You got to go, I don't consent to your mask. There you go. I don't consent.
And that's the thing. Consent, we haven't talked about it much, but do you realize that legally we consent to the law, and I'm going to put that in all caps, the law, at age of majority, or at the point of time that we become adults.
Right.
We can leave the United States if we don't like this law.
Right now, that's true.
The question is, what law do we consent? To what law do we consent?
Okay.
Is it all of the statutes, including all of the unconstitutional ones? Or is it just the Constitution and the laws made in pursuance thereof? In actuality, it's the latter, not the former. So we did not consent to any unconstitutional laws, and therefore, if people want to demand socialism, they want these things against the law, and they're not talking about doing this through an amendment process, to amend the Constitution. So if they're not talking that, then they're talking only more lawlessness, and we don't consent to that.
Right.
So if they want that bad, they need to leave and go into a country that loves what they're talking about. There are
Right.
plenty out there. They'll actually find that they don't exist. But
I need to ask this question. At what point did consent of the governed suddenly become enslaved to stupidity? Is that really what they're trying to do, is enslave us to stupidity?
Well, it's tyranny through the minority. It's like a judo move politically. Because a republic, especially ours, respects the minority voice, they take that respect and run full roughshod over you by saying, well, then they get special everything.
Yeah.
Then nobody can do anything except for you got to take this into account first, which is ridiculous.
I want to say also, this was clarified to me earlier today. The Tulsa Health Department, whom GT Bynum likes to genuflect to, at least on a weekly basis, if not more, he's not a physician. He has a PhD in administration. Yeah. He is an administrator.
And isn't he doing a damn fine job? Talk about a professional administrator controlling everyone's behavior in a city through administration. Now that guy's doing a damn fine job right there.
Yeah, I saw an article that said that there's only one person on the health board, that the Tulsa County Health Board, that may have an MD or a DO degree, and that was just one of them, and I think there's 10 or 12 of them on the board, and that's it. So it's like wait a minute, so we're gonna listen to Dart, and Dart's the one with the PhD, is that what you were saying?
He has a PhD in some administrative field.
Okay. So we're going to listen to him as though he is an authority?
Right. And the same was true with the state health department. Most of that board was hospital administrators and things like that. I mean, there was a fair number of physicians there, but even our state health department interim director, Mr. Cox, he was finally rejected by the Senate because he didn't have a medical degree. Fact is, I don't think he even had a graduate degree. And so, what are they doing investing in somebody they can never eventually put up to that top place? And Stitt was trying to do it in the Senate. In my mind, wisely said, no, we made rules for a reason, and we're not going to let the good old boy system trump what is an objective criteria.
Right, and we've lost Oldham. He'll come back as soon as he can. But I got to say, I mean, one of the things I continue to have to I feel like I'm dealing with children, have to repost Dr. Dart. Everybody's like, yeah, well, he's a doctor. Yeah, well, GT Bynum is referred. So all these other things. Anybody in America who has this much power over a community has to face a general election. I'm not saying he doesn't. Maybe he knows more than me. Maybe he's right and I'm wrong. But the fact is, if I was right, I don't get any control over anybody. This guy has control over the community because GT Bynum has just totally abdicated his throne and given it to the county. There's a city guy got elected by city voters, and he's thrown all the power over to the county. And so some guy from the county who's unelected but appointed is telling us what to do in our city. It's total bullcrap. And if Dr. Dart gets to do that, then he has to face election. I'm sure they can rig that election too. It's not like they can't rig an election.
And this is spineless leading from behind. It's classic Obama. When GT, by the way, if Dr. Dart is truly a physician, then GT is a Pontiac sports car. Hey, I tried, Tom.
That was good enough, baby.
But here's the thing, Bynum wanted somebody to take the hard, tough decision. And what was it? 3 weeks I told you, get ready. Bynum is setting up Dart to be that guy that he can say, well, he told me to. GT always somebody point the finger and say, well, he told me to. It's the same thing with the police oversight board. He wants it so bad so he can say, well, they told me to. GT
is an administrator of government that comes from the world of sales. Okay, he's a salesman at heart. Okay, and what he knows is the bottom line of every salesman to teach the customer the bad news is, let me ask my manager. And that is exactly what he's done with Dr. Dart. It's like, you know what? I don't want to be a bad guy. I'm a nice guy. Ask my wife. I'm nice. I'm a real nice guy. I don't know. Let me ask my manager, Dr. Dart. Maybe he'll let us do it. No, Dr. Dart says not safe. Dr. Dart says it. So even GT isn't even orchestrating his words to make it sound like it's his decision. All he's doing is deferring to some guy that is appointed at the county, which is my piss off. I didn't run for a county position against this guy. I ran for a city position. Okay? But oh no, he's I guarantee you, I would have never deferred to the county about it. So don't get hit.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's it. Hey, by the way, we didn't talk about this earlier. What do you know? Kanye West decided he wants to be president this year. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the government's always in on it, and they're always 2 years ahead. So I think the whole Kanye West supporting Trump was a ruse in the first place to get as many stupid Trump supporters on board so that now he can defect. All he's trying to do is split the Trump vote. There's a ton of black people going to vote for Trump. Kanye West is trying to split that vote.
I'm telling you, a lot of black folk who would otherwise vote Democrat are likely to vote for him if he can get on the ballot. I just don't think he'll get on hardly any ballots. So I don't think I don't know.
Oh, no, he's not. All he's going to try to do is he's just messing it up. That's all.
Yeah. And, could just be a PR move by Kanye. He's in the entertainment industry.
That's what he does. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
That's his forte. That's how they do it. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to have that much effect, but I just thought, it happened last week. Let's throw it out there. So,
sure did.
I'm getting something. Yeah.
There he is.
We got Oldham back? Okay.
Like David Oldham, he's having to switch over to something.
Yeah. Yeah, he's looking pretty pale right now.
As a Redskin myself, that kind of gets to me somehow.
Yeah.
Like he's out to get me.
Do you know, I heard today on a national talk show that the Redskins were officially named such as an honor to the great football outstanding running back from Oklahoma, Jim Thorpe. That was meant to be an honor to him to name the whole team the Redskins.
So recently, because you just set me up for it, recently the principal chief, Chuck Hoskins Jr. from the Cherokee Nation, the nation that I am a member of, he came out in favor of the name change. He likes the idea that the union schools will change their name, and then later on he likes the idea that the Washington Redskins will. So I contended with that concept, and I am not anywhere near ready to share that screen because I've changed it from before. But I'm going to try to get back to my there it is.
No, Jim Thorpe, just for background, he was a member of the Sac and Fox tribe. So right. I wonder if they changed their name in Washington to the Foxes, would that be offensive to Native Americans?
or would they get sacked? So here's my share, because I had commented to Chuck Hoskins Jr. that I thought it was a bad idea to do that. And if we were going to be consistent and change the name of Redskins because it's offensive, then we should also change the word man killer. Wilma Mankiller, of course, was the first woman chief of the tribe. And anything having to do with man killer should be removed because it's an innate threat of violence and it's obvious sexist discrimination. Further, white killer is also an offensive word, and you know that man killer is an old term of respect for Indian warriors, they used to call them. And there are also 4 killers, 10 killers, and white killers.
Okay, then let me throw this up because we have precedents. The Washington, D.C. basketball franchise used to be called the Washington Bullets, and they were forced to change their name because it glorified violence.
Right. Now, see, I'm, as a local guy interested in local issues, I'm concerned about Broken Arrow, because the arrow, of course, is it's a weapon of war, and broken reminds me of broken home, broken person, broken promises. And so these things are critical. I don't know what we can rename Broken Arrow, but this is something we're going to have to think about.
I don't know.
I have a couple of other, things that move us beyond this deal here. As we get into it, I suggest to the chief, and there's a poll from WND.com, show a majority of Native Americans are not offended by the Redskins name. So I suggest to the Chief Hoskins of the Cherokees that the battlefield is in the mind, just like the slur, and that he should be a chief and not a populist, because what I'm suggesting is that he is bowing to the popular culture. Now, I don't know if he aligns himself with the BLM and they have some money. They pretend to be a nonprofit, like every other nonprofit pretends to be. And but Hoskins is either just sticking his finger in the air, or he's a tried and true socialist. I mean, it is tribal mentality that helped the American native lose to the Europeans in the first place some 200 years ago. And now Hoskins is playing the tribal game again. I mean, individual capitalism always wins over tribal mentality. And so what the chief is trying to do is be an iconoclast, just like the Muslims used to do. They're going to crush any image they don't like, because in their mind, they think something bad. When I see the Washington Redskin logo, I think honor. When I was a child, because I had to walk here from North Carolina in 1873. And when I got here, my mommy told me, hey man, we're proud Indians because we have suffered and maintained. And when we played Cowboys and Indians, when I was a kid, I was always an Indian. And he's robbing, the Chuck Hoskins is robbing me of that. Furthermore, the name Chalagi is the Cherokee name for the tribe, but the Cherokee chief seems to be okay with the symbolism of the white man's label Cherokee, even though it's not Salagi. So I got a real problem with that, being a proud Redskins. And if you want to change the name of the Washington Redskins to something, change it to Redskins 2.0. How's that?
There you go. Or, if the term Washington Redskins is so offensive as it is, actually to me, I would rather we just call them the Redskins.
Oldham, you're back. Way to go. You missed all that stuff that was so great.
I caught most of it, but I was still finding technology.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Zoom has it out for us, because I think they get it from the government that we're bad news. So the government's always in on it is my first answer.
Yeah, it sure seems like it, doesn't it?
Well, we're making it okay tonight. Hey, if you're just tuning in, and you tune in 15 minutes from now, I'm Tommy McCay, right here, your fantastic host on 3D Politics Live every Monday, 7 p.m. You can catch me on Facebook at Tommy McCay, and on Twitter at Tommy McCay, also at Tom E. McCay on Parler these days. Also, David Oldham right there from constitutionalgrounds.com, and David Van from soonerpolitics.org. Where are we headed next? Now that we got Oldham back, before we lose him, we better talk about, did we talk about the Indians, the Indian criminals to be released from prison after the Supreme Court ruling last week? Is that correct?
No, we haven't talked about that. We can go ahead and talk about it here.
Do it. I've got to fix it.
I don't have the ability to share my screen anymore. But we talked a little bit about it last Monday, because it just happened in the afternoon before we came on the air. And that was that the Supreme Court ruled that the Congress had not done what was necessary to change the treaty or change their relationship with the Indian tribes as it applies to it's the MCA, and all of a sudden it's just gone out of my head what that stands for, but it's the primary criminal code, and as applies to Indians, the treaties state that Indians are to be ruled by their own tribes rather than the state or federal governments, and that was ultimately the ruling of the Supreme Court. And I've lost my place on that one. And it's the MCA, and the MCA stands for Major Crimes Act, and it's for crimes within the Indian country, and that's in quote, within the Indian country. Any Indian who can commit certain enumerated offenses shall be subject to the same law and penalties as all other persons committing any of those offenses within the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States.
Okay.
Now, I want to say that Indian country includes all land within the limits of any Indian reservation under the jurisdiction of the United States government. Well, then becomes the question, well, what is Indian land? What is, and that was what ultimately was the question. And so the tribes got involved because it's all part of the question. And even though this applies to a very narrow area of law, the Major Crimes Act, as David Van will enumerate, I'm sure, here in just a moment, the concern is the broader implications for this, because now we have much of Oklahoma is going to be ruled as, at least insofar as the MCA is concerned, we have much of Oklahoma is now going to be that Indians will have to be tried in federal court. They will not be able to be tried in state court, and so therefore, what does that mean about other aspects of life outside of crimes where tribes still rule their own tribal members? And I don't know the answers to that yet, because that's a whole area of law that and statutes that I don't know anything about. Dave, I know you have a story that ties into this that just happened here in Tulsa County.
Yes. Today, this afternoon, I was listening to local TV broadcast that said that charges that were just filed last week against a man for the death of two of his children was now vacated by District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler, and said that charges will be filed instead in federal court. And in that broadcast, it said those children were acknowledged members of a tribe, as was their mother. So it looks like for Eastern Oklahoma, whoever is the federal prosecutor, he's going to have to beef up his prosecution staff, because Kunzweiler just got a huge bunch of duties taken off his duty list.
Wow.
Yeah, right. It's so here's the thing, and I want to echo what Oldham said. The specific ruling was in the context of criminal law enforcement, but the implications are what people are going to try to assert and build on. And to that end, I asked, because growing up in another state where Indian reservations have always been acknowledged, and then there are Indian reservations where it's not split up into family allotments, such as Oklahoma did. When we prepared for statehood, all the tribes, allotted pretty much all their land to individual tribal members. Some of them were free to, they're free to sell it off to whoever, settlers.
So,
or keep
I just want to say that, as a guy that doesn't know all the weeds, but is a philosopher at heart. If you get to the 25,000-foot level, all of this murkiness in the law about who's in charge of what, where with the Indians and the Indian lands and the children of the Indian tribes, Indians, Native Americans, whatever they're called these days and whatever they're called later. If America, as founded, was the racist, sexist, overbearing, patriarchal government that crushes everybody and colonizes everything, we wouldn't have any of these problems. It's kind of like why Hillary Clinton never went through 2 years of any trial to get her out of anything, was because everybody died before they could take her to court. She kills everybody before they get her to court. The fact that we know that Trump is not a killer is because they got to go 2 years biting at his ankles. Nobody's dead yet. So this is absolutely, totally ridiculous.
Well, anyway, just to wrap up the property thing, Mark Mullen, Congressman, he still has his family Cherokee allotment, so he's never paid property taxes on it. But once you sell it, does. But here's the thing. I talked with the county clerk from Wagner County, Laura Hendricks, and she may come on at some point or answer questions further, but she said as far as property law goes, the ruling should change nothing at all. So
that's what I've heard from every source. Is like literally all they're doing is administrative. You're still going to get arrested. You're still going to get in trouble. Not like, oh, look, I'm free.
However, asking the implications of it to family in Minnesota, the fellas especially, the cuss words that come out of their mouth when we talk about that if you're an ordinary Minnesotan, you had to pay all kinds of hunting and fishing stamps and fees and licenses and tags, and then you were limited to what kind of gear you could use and what days you could hunt or fish and how many you could take. But a member of a tribe, if it was a tribal land, there was no seasons, no permits, hunt all you want. If that becomes an issue in Oklahoma, believe me, you're going to hear about it.
That's why reparations for Black Lives Matter is a ridiculous proposal. The American Indian has been screwed 400 times worse than the Black Lives Matter people. And there's no way to ferret out who in your family helped or hindered freedom to calculate how much you're going to owe. Just like you said, Van, nobody's going to be able to go back and figure how much anything's worth anymore to make it all straight. Like they do in any bankruptcy and in any business at some point, and I think this is why Trump likes the idea of more stimulus money, is because he knows it's never getting paid back. It's China's money anyway. And we're going to spend it to the point where it's like, guess what? We're never paying you back. So rack it up, boys, rack it up.
Yeah.
Well, mostly it's just made up money from the Fed. It's just
printed
PFA pulled from the air.
You know what, Tom? The reality is, if we were not the international currency of global trade, we would be shot by now. I mean, we would be absolutely toast. It's only because the whole world relies on the dollar and its stability that we have any stability at all.
Yeah, Van, finish your thought.
I just did.
Oldham, finish your thought. Sorry, Van.
No, I wanted to tap into what David was saying about his relatives who were talking about the hunting and fishing licenses and things like that. Let's remember that we all are to have the same exact position before the law, and that the law is to protect us all. Article 4 in the U.S. Constitution in Clause 2 or Section 2, Clause 1 says that the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
Wow.
Okay. So when you stop and think about it, the Bill of Rights was created to be a better enumeration of this very thought.
Yeah.
What the founders meant by this was that we all shared the same rights. They put it as privileges and immunities, but those privileges and immunities are an extension of our rights. So we're just privileged and immune from, somebody dictating to us, or we're privileged and immune from people infringing on our property and claiming it as their own because we have we're going to create rules that protect that. And on and on and on, right? And so the Bill of Rights is there to make sure that everything that we could possibly ever think to do would be by our right, so long as we don't violate the rights of somebody else. That's it. That's what we've got. And so when we look at we look at, again, when I come back to this is why hunting licenses and certain restrictions are improper. And when they are then granted to one class, whether it be a race or a tribe or whatever, that they get something that the rest of us can't. When we can't, hey, casinos, they get to run casinos, but
we covered that last year. Yeah.
Drugs,
laws.
They get to smoke, but we don't, or whatever it may be. We have problems because now, and when law and then wants to kind of wheedle around and try to then pick and choose here and there and try to make it look fair, but it's really not. Everybody knows it's not, but we're going to keep trying, but never actually just make it right, make it fair. There's our problem, and there's mask mandates, improper, federal and local control of medicine and your health and your body. And on and on and on it goes. I mean, quite frankly, nobody should take more fish than they need or hunt more game than they should need. Should they be limited? No. I mean, if that's their form of meat, they should take as many game as they can and as are necessary. But if it's going to waste,
should I?
And the rest of us. And, hey, we may overhunt things, and there might be regulations that we don't do it during breeding season, so that there are more for next year. We don't, ruin things. But we that would be a proper regulation. There's months out of the year you don't do it.
But the argument, before you move on, the argument, I think, even if it's unwritten, comes down to private property ownership. The thing is that it's like you are talking about conservation of resource, and that's true. And if you make them extinct, you're not going to have any next year. That's all true. But at the same time, I've got 8 candy bars, and you can tell me, hey, man, if you eat all your candy bars tonight, you won't have them tomorrow. And be like, guess what? I own the candy bars. So it's private property ownership. Who gets to decide when I'm done hunting?
Well, the real thing comes down to, and this is something we all need to talk about. It comes down to there is a communal aspect in that the world is only so big. It only has so many resources, and we can waste them. Now, granted, God has been extremely, favorable to us all. He always makes it so that we always have enough to eat, et cetera, generally speaking, unless he is, bringing his wrath on somebody. Everybody has enough to eat. It may not be much, but it will be sufficient. And my point in that is that we do see a lot of wickedness that brings about that kind of thing. And often it is people hoarding, think toilet paper just a couple months ago. I mean,
seems like a year.
I know, doesn't it? But,
there was
a time I needed some toilet paper and I could not find it. I was scrounging a bit to try to figure out how I was going to get some toilet paper. And it took me a while before I finally got to a place that had some. And I just
hate thinking the word scrounging now. Just
But there was a good week or more that I didn't set eyes on any toilet paper I could have bought for any price. For
Oh
any price. It was just
We're not going to go into more detail than
Oh
this.
my gosh, I've got the only have eyes for you.
So the same thing with the deer, the same thing with the fish. You can get to that same point and you may not be able to find it, but the people who have hoarded it have helped bring upon others that situation, and that need not happen if everybody is respectful toward their neighbors. That's the
Okay.
key thing. Again, it comes down to the golden rule is the solution to all of our problems.
You know, we're getting ready to close in on the hour. Not quite there yet. We've chewed a lot of fat. We continue to maintain our battle against the minions of the devil called technology. We still want to talk about the Supreme Court ruling that faithless electors' laws may stand. Before we do, I'm going to reset. I also want to thank, I hope he's still with us. Kenny Bob Tapp was watching. I commented on something he said on Facebook last week. So I always love hearing. He was suffering the heat out there with his corn seeding early because of the heat. He had it well watered, and yet still it seeds early when it's hot. So those guys, it's like you don't realize that's how the corn gets to the store, kids. But anyway, here we are once again, 3D Politics. Tommy McCay, your fine host, with David Vann from SoonerPolitics.org and David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, as usual. So I got to say, to set this up on my side of it, 4 years ago, I got a call from Oldham, as he was an elector that year going in to solidify and install Trump as our president. And a lot of my friends called me and they were like, I'm worried because even though he won the election, according to the news, that doesn't mean they'll install him because the electors still have to go follow through on their vote. And I said, I'm sleeping easy because my elector called me and said, no problem, I got this. Because I got a man of honor named David Oldham who's literally going to do what he said he was going to do. And so I didn't worry about it and Trump was installed. So Oldham, tell us about how the Supreme Court ruled and whether it's good or bad and why.
Well, I think it's terrible, and what's really terrible is all of the justices concurred. But what makes it so bad?
What did they decide?
What's that?
What did they decide?
What they decided was that the states have the right and authority to dictate or to proscribe how an elector must vote. Okay. In other words, the members of the electoral college, their job is to come together and elect a president.
Okay.
What people think of as the presidential election is not the presidential election. It's an election for electors to the electoral college. The electors then meet at the state capitol and cast their votes. Remember, there are as many electors as there are representatives for the U.S. House and U.S. Senate for each state. So that number in Oklahoma, it's 7. We would come together and we would meet and cast our votes. We might have some discussions. Every state does it a little bit differently. Texas really does it up. And and they have a whole discussion and then they hold an official vote.
Okay.
But what has happened over the last number of years is that a number of states, I think about 35 in total, have created what are called elector binding laws. Elector binding laws are laws that say you must vote as the elector for the candidate who wins the popular vote in your state And of course, you're representing your political party, so it must be your political party who wins. And then you must vote for the candidate put forth by that political party.
Moving the emphasis from the elector voting according to his individual conscience to acknowledging the group will.
Well, let me insert something here, because Oldham is using some of the language that Justice Kagan gave, where she kept referring to parties. The problem is our Constitution does not acknowledge parties. It acknowledges candidates who gain access to the ballot. It's that candidate who names who their specified electors are. And then we vote for which set of electors we want to send. So,
well, you said who creates? It's the party who elects the electors.
Well, no, because an independent candidate may do just the same thing, and the Constitution doesn't require it to come from a party.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, yeah. So the Constitution does not acknowledge parties, although parties fit within the parameters. It's not exclusive to parties.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the idea was that you are going to elect men or women, at the time men originally, who knew more of the players, who knew things that the general public didn't know. So the entire point was to elect these men, or now women, to perform a service.
I would call them captains of industry.
Well, not just captains of industry.
God damn it!
Who actually knew the political players. They may well be captains of industry, but they. That's
what I call them.
Okay. So,
just to agree, you know.
So anyway, but the point is that the election is to elect your slate of electors. So in first district here in Oklahoma, I was the one on the ballot, as it were. But in reality, what we had in Oklahoma is we have a slate. So you saw all 7 of our names, 2 of which represented the statewide ballot, you know, the senators, and the rest were the congressional districts, the 5 congressional districts. Well, so what ends up happening, and this is what I think is key from the argument, and this is what Kagan wrote. She said, so long as nothing else in the Constitution poses an obstacle, a state can add an associated condition of appointment. It can demand that the elector actually live up to his pledge on pain of penalty, which is to say that the state's appointment power, barring some outside constraint, enables the enforcement of a pledge like Washington State's. The context of that is that she assumes that the elector actually, or that the state has the authority to demand such a pledge to the party's candidate. So in other words, let's say that I was going to be an elector, and I thought, you know, I came to understand, being a knowledge, you know, a person with particular knowledge that other people don't have. Okay. And that is being a party to it, not that I have some gift. But because of my connections and so forth, I learned something, and I learned that the candidate is going to pull, say, a Hitler, and that this is really his mindset. He's going to burn down the Congress, and he's going to set himself up as dictator, and he's going to suspend the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. What would my duty be? Would it be to the party? Would it be to the Republic?
Okay, I see your point. Because what they're doing. Go ahead, Van.
I've got 2 points on this. One, I want to refer to Bush v. Gore ruling, where Rehnquist in the majority specifically said Congress gave to the legislatures of each state the ability to set their parameters. And that's why some states let each congressional district vote independently, such as Maine or Nebraska, where, CD1 voted for, let's say for Hillary Clinton, CD2 voted for Trump. So there is that latitude. But then the other thing I want to say is, Oldham, something you said about Kagan. She said, unless some other external factor weighs in, right?
Right, unless the Constitution poses an obstacle.
Right, okay, or some kind of obstacle. I think that was a wink and a nod, call it a dog whistle, to the compact for national popular vote. I think she set it up to defend national popular vote as an interstate compact, which they're going to then use this ruling to punish you, even though your state wants you to vote for, say, Trump. Now, because of a in some states, now you have to vote for Biden.
Yeah. Van agrees with me. The government's in on it. I mean, clearly the government's in on it.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, but now that I've stolen the attention, I want to say, Van, because there are what I call fulcrum issues, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And this one is group rights versus individual rights, and that's literally what they're doing to the elector, is forcing the elector off of his own individual conscience and onto whatever the group popular vote is. It's peer pressure is what it is.
Correct. Well, what it ends up being is you end up as the elector being the rubber stamp for the popular vote of the state. There it is. At this point.
And there's no reason to have an individual name on that. They should have a group stamp. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Van.
Here's the other thing you run into that. As much as I have problems with this ruling and how broadly it was written, the opinion, and Oldham certainly has problems with it, it does give us a little bit of opportunity here on something a little bit different, but not that much different. It's the ability to put requirements on elected officials that can actually put criminal penalties for failure to meet obligations that we stated in our Constitution. And namely this, in Oklahoma, every 20 years, our legislature is required to put a question before the voters. Do you want to have another constitutional convention? And our legislature is 25 years or so out of step with that, way overdue. By this ruling, we can then say we can create a criminal penalty on every lawmaker in our legislature who fails to do that. And we have Supreme Court ruling now as a precedent on our side.
The good news about the COVID-19 is I have learned there is such a thing called contact tracing. The fact that contact tracing is available instead of body cams for the cops, I want contact tracing on every member of Congress. Okay, and not for any virus, because I just want to know who they're talking to. If you're going to be hired to represent me, I want you immediately have to submit to contact tracing so I know where you're going, who you're talking to, how long you spend with them, how close you are to. I mean, the distance between you and them, literally. Also, there's a thing called social distancing that's called. And they call it 6 feet. There's a thing called modified social distancing, and that's inside that.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I do want to say a couple more things about about this ruling. First off, I'm concerned about the fact that they're now saying that the states have some unenumerated power to set conditions on the appointment, not just the manner of election, but the conditions of election. And that is nowhere described as an enumerated power in the U.S. Constitution, and remember, an elector is not a state position. It is a federal position. It is so.
Can I answer that, Oldham?
What's that?
Well, it was actually a constitutional amendment that set in place the Electoral College as separate from our two houses of Congress, right?
No, it was started that way, but then they amended it a bit.
Okay, yeah, so we amended it, but it was in that ruling by Rehnquist in Bush v. Gore that he specifically made the strong claim that our Congress gave to the legislatures of each state the authority to determine how their electors are selected.
How they're selected, but not what they must do. And there's no power granted to say only to put a limit on the elector. There are no conditions to be an elector. Now there are.
Okay,
the condition is that you take the pledge.
So I now correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, because I look to you for that kind of guidance. At the policemen, when they make a report, they're not making a report for the group. What a policeman does is he says, I will be the eyewitness, because it comes down to a person has to make a claim. With a group can't just say, oh, we all think he's guilty. It's like a guy has to have, it is an authorization of personal witness. And so this is the problem I see with what you're talking about here, is that they're taking away your ability to say, I'm voting the way I'm voting based on my personal conscience and my personal witness. Okay?
Correct.
Because your conscience, as you tried to point out earlier, could change. If you were on board for Hitler till you found out he was Hitler, you would say, wow, yesterday I found out and I'm not going to do it. And they would say, yeah, but the group said. And you'd be like, but that's not me and that's not my conscience. And this whole country was started on individual reality, not group reality. So you're not to be a rubber stamp for any group. The whole idea is that it fails if it doesn't meet the individual's conscience and witness criteria. Well, it's ridiculous.
That's very true. And the real thing is that the electors are supposed to be so carefully chosen that they are trusted and trustworthy enough that you give them this particular position, and they are trusted to make a good decision. Now we're just saying, screw it, we're not going to do that anymore. They're just going to do everything.
That's the system. The system is what we do is, instead of going by socialism where the group and the mob decide, we pick a trusted person who will have a conscience, and he will stand as a personal witness beside his decision with honor. It's like word and honor.
Exactly. And the elector will stand or fall politically because most of us are active in one way or another.
Right. Or you're not there, right? Van, what do you got?
Well, so many of our state legislators who I've talked to have said this over and over again. I could name several, but I won't. I'll go to the point. We have a representative form of democracy. And he said, several of them have said, vote for somebody not knowing what all the issues will be or the conditions, and you trust them to make the best decisions using their own judgment. That's what they say when they go to Oklahoma City, that they want to be free to just say, hey, I used my own judgment.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Our electors.
Right.
So, it's those same lawmakers who talk about that their judgment is sufficient, that we should trust that, yet they're not willing to put the same respect to our state electors who are directly elected by the people.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm saying, and this is I know it's a side issue, but I'm saying we need to start putting the screws to our own legislatures and say, quit putting rules on others that you don't put on yourself.
Oh, yeah, that ought to be, yeah.
And one other thing, and that is the concern that while now
they are saying that we have to, as electors have to be faithful to the pledge. And right now the pledge is to do the bidding of the, to vote for the one who got the majority of the popular vote within the state. If that pledge changes to be the National Popular Vote Compact,
Right.
then you will be held to that pledge, because why? The states can make it whatever they want, and that's what they then do.
Yeah.
So this is the natural progression of things, and why legislating from the bench is so vile.
Oh yeah.
Because this is just the natural progression of things. I do want to say that with the National Popular Vote Compact, we have to remember, and this will probably come up at some point, and the Supreme Court will just say whatever, or Congress will do it. The Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution says, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, enter into any agreement or compact with another state. So Congress would have to approve this National Popular Vote Compact before it could ever come into actual effect. And if anybody did it without the consent of Congress, the 14th Amendment says that their basis for representation should be reduced by the number of people who are disenfranchised within their state for having their suffrage rights violated. What that means is basically if they enter into this compact by just changing this pledge, and thereby there's now this compact that's formed, that state should have its electors removed, and the basis for choosing the president would be reduced by that number. And
you can see, folks, why we're going to lose this battle is because Oldham is correct, and the socialist argument is so much easier to define. Oh, do what I say or I'll knock the crap out of you. There you go, we're done.
I'm telling you guys.
Yeah.
Imagine if this National Popular Vote Compact had been in place 4 years ago. Imagine Trump having gotten the majority of, well, actually, no, they go by popular vote. But imagine California found itself on the minority side of that, and a bunch of liberal California electors tried to be faithless. It would be up to their own state's attorney general to prosecute them. Do you really expect the leftists to prosecute their own?
Well, you know what's interesting is every single person in these two cases that the Supreme Court ruled against were Democrats and were voting faithless to try to stop Trump. So they took their votes away from Clinton, and in order to try to create a separate candidate, one voted for Kasich and the other went for Colin Powell. Yeah. So all of them were Democrats. In the future, it would be, it's always stop and think about it. Those who are, and mind you, I do not have a problem with them, going for whomever they wanted, but it was always about, these laws that are just, anyway, they were all Democrats that did this and got ruled against.
Because I know each of us at 3D Politics just loves to hear the other talk. Sometimes we get a viewer, and we have one now. A viewer has a question for Van. What is Van's current speed?
The prevailing speed of the traffic.
That's not good enough. You got to give us a number, dude.
I'm definitely under 80 at all times.
Under 80, and I am supposing that's miles per hour, not kilometers, correct?
It's no. I've been basically about between 65. Sometimes it's gone to 75 if I was trying to hurry up, get around somebody. But I won't say which
Oh
jurisdiction.
my God! So Blake Barber, our viewer who's interested, he wants to do managed pain on Van. He wants you to get pulled over for a sampling of Oklahoma trooper conduct, but he doesn't want a ticket or a citation on you.
Yeah,
Isn't that nice?
yeah.
That's so kind. And I don't even want you to get pulled over.
And I don't claim to be in Oklahoma right now either. So
Kenny Bob Tapp and Blake Barber, thanks for watching tonight.
Thank you, Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, we were bored till Blake got here.
Hey, we do need more people to do driving audits. What's it called? Where cops pull you over.
Yeah.
Hey,
we need more.
To the Davids, did you see me tag you guys on the cop that pulled the person over with the ice cream? Did you see that yet?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Damn it. Blake, I want to know from Blake Barber, I want to know how Blake Barber feels about the Redskins logo and the change therein. But back to the Sooner politics and the constitutional grounds and 3D politics. I sent it to all three. Linda Collier, the fabulous gal that runs the Cave House over there. Bynum visited and she loved Bynum. Then Bynum did something she didn't like. Anyway, I love Linda Collier and the Cave House. It's a Tulsa tradition. What do you got? What do you got, Van?
All right. I want to hear from our viewers. What do they want to see done with the NFL football franchise in Washington, now known as the Washington Redskins? Have you got a name for us?
After Redskins 2.0, I voted for the Purple Fags, spelled PHAG, but that was just me.
Well, I think
that was just me.
They named it after is the Sac and Fox Indian. I'm wondering if they should just name them the Washington Foxes.
Oh my gosh!
Offensive to the Sac tribe, or you want to sack the idea, I suppose. But anyway, and then the other thing I want to do is put a plug in. Share us on our podcast. You can pull this up anytime on your mobile device and listen to the podcast. 3D Politics Live. We have both a video podcast and audio. So that's just another way of catching up with us besides 3dpolitics.com and 3D Politics on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you, Van, for that. I did recently get on my phone and go to the podcast app and search us down, and there we are. And that way you don't have to wonder if you're missing it. It just automatically downloads, and when you light it up, there it is. Tons of other stuff. Hold on, I'm getting it coming in. This just in from Blake Barber, our Ertzstot's reporter out there in the field. He thinks that any mascot is quite obviously meant as a positive, powerful, fierce, formidable. The outrage is a bait and switch. Nice job.
Yeah.
We have the smartest viewers out here, even if there's only two of them. Okay, all right, okay, I'll go with that.
No, you'll say you agreed with him.
Blake is one of our best critics and viewers, and so I always respect what he says either way.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a ton of other stuff to talk about. I want to say something else on my own personal note, unless you guys got something else for the crew. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
No, I think we in the weeks to come, look for us to focus on the city council and mayor races. Those are going to be coming up here in the next couple of months. Decision here about 6 weeks from now, those of us in Tulsa.
Right. And so I know that the two Davids, Van and Oldham, are holding out for a potential Tay vote. But for me, I am actually already headed towards this guy here, Ken Reddick. We had him on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago. Tomorrow, Tuesday, July 14th, at Fat Guy's Burger Bar, 140 North Greenwood Avenue, 6 to 8 p.m. You can meet and greet, or if you choose, you can greet and meet Ken Reddick for Tulsa mayor. What I know so far is that Ken has come out pretty squarely that he is not in favor of a mask mandate. He doesn't typically ask the manager. He's running against my opponent from 4 years ago, my favorite fascist, who suggested we buy a place called the Gathering Place instead of calling it the Social Distancing Place. My buck and my vote go for Ken Reddick. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. Ken Reddick is what I said, and there's his picture right there. And listen, this is just me talking. The Van and the Oldham get to do anything they want. They can vote for Tay, whatever you want.
I wonder if Fat Guy's Burger Bar in Greenwood, I wonder if they're just doing this for spite, because I think their competition includes the mayoral candidate, Ty Walker. Happens to be another conservative and a black man who has a restaurant down there in the Greenwood area.
And both
Really.
also,
Now this Fat Guy's is right underneath the ballpark. So on the east side of the ballpark. So
I just also both the Davids and I have had a discussion earlier. Any of the mayoral candidates are welcome to chime in. Let us know. GT is formally invited. All the other candidates, we've already had Ken Reddick on, and so all the other candidates are welcome to come on the show. We want them here. We would love to validate our coverage by having them here and validate their campaign by having them show it here. So
we just got a text from Paul Tay. He said to say thank you, Tom.
You are welcome, because we're all defined by our opponents as well as our sycophants. Blake Barber adds a final note. It's incredible to me how weak and spineless owners, CEOs, suits are. When are they actually good for? What are they actually good for? Nice job. Blake Barber is liking the flow. And one syllable, two syllables. Ken Reddick. Fat Guy's Burger Bar doesn't shout a place of inspiration, though. Well, Blake is off in his own little world. I kind of
Fat Guy's is pretty good. It's delicious. They have huge burgers and their beers are cold.
It's like an episode of Interstellar where you're like, Blake. Look, the book's moved. Anyway, it's been I enjoyed the show.
I did have one thing before we get out of here.
Okay.
No. I just came in. You guys are getting texts. I'm getting
You
texts.
better believe it, Oldham. Do it.
So one of the protest organizers referred me to a Tulsa World article. I'm sure I'll be sharing it on 3D Politics here as soon as we're done. The language is now out. Apparently, it's for the potential mask mandate, and they have some things to say about it. But we'll put it up so everybody can look at it. Don't forget, and please come out 3:30 Wednesday afternoon. Protest the mask mandates. Just stand for freedom. We'll get through this, and we'll get through it better if we all live free and take our own responsibility for care for ourselves. We will get through it. So
drive together alone there. Yes, Van.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a promo for next week's show. Is going to be all about the specifics and how we can approach this thing. This is going to be a battle.
This is all about forced association and forced participation, where you have to do what we say, my body, my choice has gone away. Everybody has their own truth has gone away. All these concepts that got us here. Now, all of a sudden, there's absolute truth, and we have to do it because trickle-down health is a thing, even though trickle-down economics never did work, or trickle-down health, though, because anything we want is whatever we want. But anyway, I really want to thank Blake Barber for lighting us up at the end of the night. Kenny Bob Tapp for tuning in, who's actually out there providing for us in the homeland. David Oldham from Constitutional Grounds, as usual. Sooner Politics with David Van on the road doing 80 miles an hour. It's just insane. The guy can do it all. And I'm just right here making anything I can happen. But we'll see you again next week, Monday, starting as close to 7 as we can. Tommy McCay, right here for 3D Politics Live. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for showing up.
Good night.
Hold that thought, children.
Looking for a place to pull over here soon.
Yeah, we're going to have to pull you over.
No, Debbie and I need to get out and stretch. It's every couple hours.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Okay, we ended.
driving a
Okay.
rental car. This is, gosh, I picked up this Nissan Altima at less than 2,000 miles at 2020, and I got to rent it. And my average, the computer says 34.3 miles per gallon I've been getting on this. And it's a full-size car.
Well, is it a little 4-cylinder or is it a big 4-cylinder?
I think it's got to be a 6.
Really?
You know, what's a Nissan
Oh, you know what?
Altima?
That could be the same 6 that I'm running, but in a smaller car, so you're gonna get better gas mileage.
Yeah, it was kind of the Chevy Impala class by Budget Car Rental.
Right.
And,
Right.
and yeah, you know, so I'm like, hey, not too bad. Boy, if you can figure out all the bells and whistles and buttons of these things, you know, I'm still trying to figure out what does this button do, you know, so. But yeah, by the way, Oldham, I just turned off location services on my phone, and
Right.
then I was able to do this. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
And anyway, and I just took a couple of my wife's hair tie rubber band type things and put it on the rear view mirror, and then I'm using just a plug-in headphone thing with the
Oh,
mic.
good.
Yeah, and it works really good. Does the sound okay, guys?
Yeah, this was good. Yeah, I loved having the motion in the background. I mean, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, good. We figured out the trick then. You turn off location services and